Hi, I'm Gene with Performance Bicycle, and today I'm going to talk about a couple different kinds of rim brakes. There are three basic types of rim brakes I'm going to talk about today, and the first one is a caliper style brake. This is a caliper style brake. It's very similar to this brake right here. It's going to mount on most road bikes and some path and pavement bikes. That's pretty much where you're going to find most of your caliper style brakes. There's two different kinds as well. There's a dual pivot like this one, where it'll pivot here and back here. And we also have a single pivot caliper. This is a more common style. This has been around for quite a long time. And the only pivot is right here in the very center. The second kind of rim brake I'm going to talk about a little bit is the linear pull, or the direct pull, or Shimano likes to call their linear pull brake the V-brake. The V-brake is typically found on most mountain bikes. You'll find them on some BMX bikes, things like that. They're going to mount on a couple posts mounted on the fork or the frame. The cable comes in and directly pulls across the top of the brake like this. That's the reason why it's called a direct pull brake. The third type of rim brake we're going to talk about today is the cantilever style brake. Now this is very similar to the linear pull brake, except for the cable's pulled just a little bit differently. The cable will come down from the top like this and pull from a V shape or maybe a center pull, which you might have heard the term center pull brake before. That could be considered a cantilever style brake. Again, this brake mounts on post, and it's typically found on off-road bikes like mountain bikes, cyclocross bikes, things like that. Okay, the brake levers that are used on these bikes, pretty much all the brake levers are compatible with your caliper style brakes. You have your typical STI or road brake style lever, just like what's on this bike right here. Now you also have some inline style levers. Now these hook into, or the cable hooks into a regular cable just like this. So the cable would run in through this lever right here, and you can brake from either this position or from this position, either one. And we also have the basic mountain bike or linear pull style lever. Now you have to be real careful with this style of lever because there are two different types of levers that look exactly alike. One of them is a linear pull and the other one is a cantilever. The difference between the two is they pull a different amount of cable. The linear pull handle will work with linear pull levers or cantilever levers, but the cantilever lever will not work with linear pull brakes. Okay, it doesn't pull enough cable. You'll get a real sloppy feel. You'll get very bad braking performance if you try to use a cantilever brake lever with linear pull brakes. There's a couple different types of brake cables also. They look very similar except for the ends of them. Now here you can see the two types of ends on there. One of them is like a bullet shaped type, and that's going to be a road brake lever, like what's going to work on this type of brake lever right here. The other one has kind of like a hockey puck on the end, a little disc on the end. This is going to be your mountain bike style lever, and it's going to work on levers like this also. With the brake cables, you have to have housing to run the brake cables through. Now there are two different types of housing out there. On the brake housing, the inner support feature is wound around the inner core of the brake housing itself. Whereas the other type of housing that's available is a derailleur style housing. Now this is a compressionless housing. The support feature runs the length of the housing. Now this doesn't give any kind of support for a brake cable when you're putting a lot of pressure on the brakes, when you're really hitting the brake lever hard. The derailleur housing does not provide any type of support to keep that housing, to keep the brake cable inside. And it'll literally try to find a soft spot in between the support strands and try to brake straight out. So it's real important to use the brake housing with brake cables. Now the last thing we have is the different types of brake pads. You have a threaded style post like this right here. There's a couple of different styles of threaded style posts also. This happens to be one that goes on a linear pull brake or a cantilever brake, some sort of mountain style brake. And you'll notice also with this type there are little washers that help adjust the pad angle in relation to the rim. You also have a threaded style road brake style pad like this, which is going to be used on caliper style brakes. The main difference between these two, besides the adjusting feature, So the road brake pads typically are a little bit shorter, shorter in length. With both styles of pads, there are a cartridge style pad, which what you can actually do is by removing this little bolt, you can slide the pad cartridge out and slide a new cartridge pad in. So you can keep the same body, but as the pad wears, you can replace the pad with a brand new one. So that's pretty neat. And what's really nice about this also is you can use a different style pad for different types of conditions, where typically the red pads are for wetter conditions, the darker pads are for drier conditions, and they also have multi-pad compounds as well. A couple other pads that are out there, like this Eagle 2 pad, this is a cantilever style pad, threaded post, but it doesn't have any kind of adjustments. This is going to be used for a cantilever style brake. And there's also, like the pad on this cantilever brake, there's a smooth post. You're going to see this probably on some of the older models. The pad is held onto the brake arm by pretty much friction on the back side of this eye bolt. Okay, that's a basic overview of rim brakes. If you'd like to learn more about rim brakes or how to adjust rim brakes, visit our Performance Bicycle Learning Center and have a great ride.